Minyu stood in the docking bay of Station Prime and felt very small. The station was huge. Everything here was built for creatures twice his size. The ceiling stretched high above him, and the corridors were wide enough to fit three of him standing side by side. He was only 5 feet and 6 inches tall. Back on Earth, that was normal. Here, surrounded by alien hunters from across the galaxy, he looked like a child. A group of warriors approached him. They were massive reptilian beings with thick scales covering their bodies. Each one stood over 8 feet tall. Their claws clicked on the metal floor as they walked. Their yellow eyes looked down at Minyu with something that might have been amusement. The largest stepped forward. His scales were darker than the others and a long scar ran across his face. "This is the Terran." His voice was deep and rough. "This tiny thing." The other made sounds that Minyu realized were laughter. It sounded like rocks grinding together. "I am Minyu. I'm here to work on your atmospheric systems." He kept his voice steady. He had dealt with bullies before. The leaned down until his face was level with Minyu's. "I am hunt leader of this station. Do you know what we do here, little Terran?" "You hunt." "We are the greatest hunters in the galaxy. We have killed beasts that would make your kind run screaming." His mouth opened slightly, showing rows of sharp teeth. "And you, what have you ever hunted?" "I fix air recyclers." Minyu picked up his equipment case. It was heavy and he struggled to lift it. The laughed again. Kicked the case and it slid across the floor. "Prey species, your kind is soft. No claws, no fangs, no armor. You should not be here with real hunters." Minyu said nothing. He walked over to his case and picked it up again. His face showed no emotion, but his jaw was tight. A human woman approached as they walked away. She was in her 30s with short black hair and kind eyes. "Don't mind them. They treat everyone like that at first. I'm Minyu." He shook her hand. "How long have you been here?" 2 years. I study predator species." Helped him carry his equipment. "You'll get used to it. The station operates under what they call Hunter's Law. Strength matters here. Killing ability matters. Everything else is secondary." They walked through the corridors. Minyu saw dozens of different alien species. Most of them were large and dangerous looking. Some had claws. Others had sharp teeth or armored bodies. A few had multiple arms or legs. All of them looked at Minyu with the same expression he had seen on his face. "Contempt." "They think humans are weak," said quietly. "We're classified as a prey species in their database. We don't have natural weapons. We're not very strong compared to most of them. And we're small." "Are we the only humans here?" "There are 5 of us now. We mostly keep to ourselves. It's safer that way." They reached the communal dining hall. It was massive, with long tables arranged throughout the space. Led Minyu to a small table in the corner. Several other species sat there, all of them smaller and less threatening than the. "This is the prey table," explained. "Species that aren't classified as predators eat here." Minyu looked at the other tables. They sat together, eating large portions of meat. Other predator species had their own tables. They were loud and boisterous, celebrating their hunts. As Minyu approached their table, he was carrying a piece of meat. Without warning, he tossed it at Minyu. It hit him in the chest and fell to the floor. "Scraps for the prey," he said. The other howled with laughter. Minyu wiped his shirt clean. He looked up at but said nothing. His hands, however, were clenched into fists under the table. Seemed disappointed by the lack of reaction. He walked away, still laughing with his companions. "You handled that well," said. "Most people try to fight back the first time. That just makes it worse." "I'm not here to fight, I'm here to work." That night showed Minyu to his quarters. They were small but functional. After she left, Minyu sat on his bed and looked at his hands. They were small hands. No claws, just regular human hands. The next day found him working on an air recycler in one of the maintenance corridors. "I wanted to tell you something," she said. "There's a legend the older species talk about. They call it the first fang or the supreme hunter. What is it? No one knows exactly. Some kind of ancient entity that supposedly taught all predator species how to hunt. Most people think it's just a myth, but the oldest species, the ones who have been around for millions of years, they speak of it with reverence. Why are you telling me this? Was quiet for a moment, because sometimes I wonder if the legend is connected to something the old species say about Earth. They have records going back millions of years, and in those records there are mentions of a small planet in the outer spiral where something unusual happened. Unusual how? A species that wasn't supposed to be a predator became one anyway. A species with no natural weapons that somehow climbed to the top of its food chain. The records are vague, but they mention something called the patient death. Minyu looked up from his work. That's a strange name. It is, but it's how they describe the hunting style of that species. Not fast, not strong, just patient, relentless, never stopping until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. And you think they were talking about humans? I think, said carefully, that the galaxy only knows the version of humanity that exists now. Peaceful, civilized, restrained. They don't know what we were, what we had to be to survive. Minyu returned to his work, but's words stayed with him. That night he dreamed of running, endless running across vast plains, chasing something that ran ahead of him. In the dream, he never got tired. He just kept running, and eventually his prey fell. When he woke up, his heart was pounding. The dream felt like a memory from a time before cities and technology, a memory of what humans used to be. He looked at his hands again, still no claws, but maybe he thought humans didn't need them. The alarm screamed through Station Prime 3 days after Minyu arrived. Red emergency lights flooded the corridors, and an automated voice announced in multiple languages. Breach detected. Lower decks. All non-essential personnel evacuate to safe zones. Minyu was deep in Section 7B, working on a critical air recycler. The system had been failing for weeks, and if it shut down completely, this entire section would lose oxygen within 20 minutes. His tools were spread around him, and he was elbow-deep in the machinery when the alarm started. The emergency doors slammed shut with a heavy metallic thud. Minyu was sealed inside. He grabbed his communicator and tried to call for help, but the signal was blocked. The emergency systems had locked down all communications to prevent the breach from spreading. He heard voices on the other side of the room. 3 warriors had been training in the combat arena attached to this section. Now they were trapped too. One of them was. Great, growled when he saw Minyu. Trapped with a prey species. This day gets worse. The other 2 checked their weapons. They had training blades designed for practice, not real combat. A sound echoed through the ventilation shaft above them. It was a clicking, skittering noise, like claws on metal, lots of claws. Void Ravagers, one of them whispered. His voice was filled with fear. Minyu had heard about these creatures. They were space-faring predators that sometimes attached themselves to ships during supply transfers. They could survive in vacuum, tear through starship hulls, and had 6 legs that ended in razor-sharp points. They were fast, they were deadly, and they were very, very hungry. Hide human, ordered. He pointed to a storage locker against the wall. Get in there and stay quiet. This is work for hunters. Minyu looked at the air recycler. If I don't finish this repair, we'll run out of oxygen in less than 20 minutes. Then work fast and stay out of our way. The 3 formed a defensive position near the center of the room. Their training blades were better than nothing, but Minyu could see they were nervous. Void Ravagers were dangerous even for experienced warriors. Minyu returned to his work. His hands moved quickly, reconnecting circuits and replacing damaged parts, but his ears were focused on the sounds above. The clicking was getting closer. He counted the rhythm. 4 distinct patterns, 4 different creatures. The ceiling exploded. 4 void ravagers dropped into the room. They were terrifying. Each one was the size of a large dog but built like an insect. 6 legs, armored carapace, multiple eyes that reflected the red emergency lights, and mandibles that could bite through steel. The fought bravely, roared and swung his blade, catching one ravager across its face. The creature screamed and backed away, but the other 3 spread out, surrounding the warriors. They were trained fighters, but the ravagers were faster. In low gravity, the creatures could leap and change direction midair. They darted in and out, their leg claws slashing at the. One went down. A ravager had driven its leg through his throat. He fell, choking on his own blood. Another screamed as a ravager latched onto his back, mandibles tearing into his shoulder. Was fighting 2 ravagers at once. He was strong and skilled, but he was being overwhelmed. A claw caught him across the chest, leaving deep gouges in his scales. He stumbled backward. Minyu watched all of this while his hands continued working on the air recycler. His mind was processing everything. The way the ravagers moved, the patterns of their attacks, the slight delay between when they decided to strike and when they actually moved, the blind spot just behind their primary sensory organs. He saw about to die. A ravager was poised above him, ready to drive its leg down through his skull. Minyu moved. He didn't think about it. His body just moved. He grabbed a piece of broken metal piping from his toolbox and rolled across the floor. The ravager's leg came down but wasn't there anymore. Minyu had kicked him out of the way. The ravager turned toward Minyu. It clicked its mandibles and prepared to strike. Minyu waited. The creature lunged. At the last possible second, Minyu dropped flat and slid under it. As it passed over him, he drove the metal pipe up through the gap in its armor where the leg joints connected to the body. The pipe went deep. The ravager shrieked and collapsed. The 3 remaining ravagers turned their attention to Minyu. They circled him slowly, their multiple eyes fixed on this small creature that had just killed one of their own. Minyu stood slowly. He held the bloody pipe in one hand. His heart was pounding, but his breathing was calm, steady. Watched from the floor, clutching his wounded chest. What he saw made no sense. The small human wasn't fighting like a prey species. He wasn't panicking or running. He was watching the ravagers with the same intensity they were watching him. A ravager charged Minyu and brought the pipe down on its head. Not hard enough to kill it, but enough to stun it. While it was dazed, he grabbed a piece of broken equipment and threw it at the wall. The sound made 2 ravagers turn toward the noise. In that split second of distraction, Minyu moved behind the stunned one and drove the pipe through its brain. 2 left. They attacked together. This time, Minyu used the environment. He backed toward a support pillar and waited. When they lunged, he dove aside. Both ravagers crashed into the pillar. While they were recovering, Minyu grabbed a damaged panel from the floor and brought its sharp edge down like an axe. One ravager's head separated from its body. The last ravager realized it was alone. It backed away, making defensive clicks. Minyu approached slowly. He didn't rush. He just walked forward, calm and patient. The ravager tried to escape, but Minyu had positioned himself between it and the ventilation shaft. It had nowhere to go. It charged one final time. Minyu stepped aside and drove the pipe through its exposed underbelly. The creature fell and stopped moving. Silence filled the room. The emergency lights cast everything in red. 4 dead ravagers lay on the floor. Minyu stood among them, breathing hard but steady. His clothes were torn and covered in dark alien blood. He turned back to the air recycler and picked up his tools. "What?" His voice was weak. "What are you?" Minyu didn't answer. He finished the repair and the air recycler hummed back to life. Fresh oxygen began flowing through the section. Only then did he look at, "I'm an engineer. Let me see your wounds." Stared at the small human with new eyes, the way Minyu had moved, the cold calculation in every strike, the patience, the efficiency. It wasn't the fighting style of a desperate prey species trying to survive. It was the movement of a hunter who had been hiding what he truly was. News spread through Station Prime like fire. The small human engineer had killed 4 void ravagers, alone, with nothing but a metal pipe and broken equipment. Minyu tried to go about his work as usual, but everywhere he went, aliens stopped and stared. Some whispered, others kept their distance. The who had mocked him in the dining hall now fell silent when he entered. Called a meeting in the station's central chamber. Leaders from every species gathered. Minyu was asked to attend. He stood uncomfortably in front of hundreds of eyes, all watching him with expressions he couldn't quite read. "Explain," said simply. His chest was wrapped in medical bandages, but he stood straight and strong. "Explain how a prey species killed 4 ravagers." Minyu didn't know what to say. I watched how they moved. I found their weak points. I used what was available." A tall, insect-like alien clicked its mandibles. "That is not prey behavior. Prey runs, prey hides, prey dies." "I'm human," Minyu said quietly. "Maybe we're different." Stood up from where she had been sitting in the back. "May I speak?" Nodded. Walked to the front. She held a data pad. "I've been studying predator species for 2 years. I've also been studying human history. With your permission, I'd like to share what I've learned about my own kind." The chamber fell silent. Everyone leaned forward to listen. "Most of you classify humans as prey species because we lack natural weapons. No claws, no fangs, no venom, no armor. You look at us and see weakness." His voice was steady. "But you're looking at the wrong things." She activated her data pad and a hologram appeared. It showed Earth from space, then zoomed in to show vast grasslands. "Humans evolved on the African plains. We weren't the strongest, we weren't the fastest, but we had something else. We could run, not fast but for a very, very long time." The hologram showed a human chasing an antelope. The antelope was much faster and quickly ran out of sight, but the human kept running, and running, and running. It's called persistence hunting. Other predators chase prey for short bursts. Humans chase prey for hours, sometimes for days. We just keep coming. The prey runs until it's exhausted, until its body shuts down from heat, and then we walk up and kill it. Murmurs filled the chamber. An alien that looked like a bear raised its paw. "But that takes no skill, that is just walking." "Is it?" changed the hologram. It now showed a human tracking footprints in dirt. "We are tracking specialists. We can follow trails that are days old. We can tell which animal made the print, how long ago, and whether it's injured. We read the environment like a book." Another image appeared. A group of humans surrounding a mammoth with spears. "We are pack hunters. We communicate with complex language. We plan strategies. We coordinate attacks. And we make tools." Looked around the chamber. Every species here was born with their weapons. Humans made theirs. We took rocks and sharpened them into knives. We took sticks and made them into spears. We learned to make fire to cook our food, to preserve meat. We created weapons that could kill from a distance. Bows, arrows, eventually guns. Leaned forward. "This is all history, ancient history. Your kind is civilized now." "Yes," said softly. "We are because we had to be. Do you want to know why?" She changed the hologram again. This time it showed human warfare, soldiers with weapons, explosions, destruction. "We became so good at hunting that we ran out of prey, so we started hunting each other. For thousands of years, humans killed humans. We created weapons specifically designed to kill our own kind. We got so efficient at it that we nearly drove ourselves extinct." The chamber was completely silent now. "We didn't lose our hunting instincts. We learned to control them. We channeled that energy into building, into creating, into exploring. But the instinct is still there. It's always been there." Looked at Minyu. "When you put a human in a survival situation, when you threaten their life or the lives of their pack, that ancient hunter wakes up, and it's very, very good at what it does. An old alien with gray skin and wise eyes spoke. Its voice was like wind through caves. I am of the. We are one of the oldest species in the galaxy. I have heard stories of a small planet where the prey became the predator, where a species with no weapons made weapons, where hunters learned to hunt other hunters. We thought it was a legend. The old looked at Minu with something like recognition. But legends often have truth at their core. He walked over to Minu and looked down at him. For a long moment, neither spoke, then placed his clawed hand over his chest in a gesture of respect. I judged you wrongly, Minu of Earth. I saw your size and thought you were weak. I should have looked deeper. You didn't know, Minu said. No, but I should have questioned why a species with no natural weapons survived at all. Prey species that lack defenses die out. Your kind lived. That alone should have told me something. Turn to address the entire chamber. From this day forward, humans are not to be seated at the prey table. They have earned their place among hunters. Not everyone agreed. A massive alien with 4 arms stood up. One human killed some ravagers. That doesn't prove anything. It could have been luck. Then test them, someone else called out. Let them prove it. Arguments erupted throughout the chamber. Some agreed that humans deserved respect. Others insisted they needed more proof. The noise grew louder and louder. Suddenly, everything went quiet. A presence filled the room. It wasn't physical. It was something else, something ancient and powerful. Every being in the chamber felt it. The lights flickered. The air grew heavy. A voice spoke. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was deep and resonant, speaking in a language everyone somehow understood. A trial is coming. Minu felt his skin prickle. His heart raced. Every instinct told him to run, but he forced himself to stand still. Every 1,000 cycles, I send my servant to test the worthiest hunters in the galaxy. The time has come again. Prepare yourselves. The presence vanished as quickly as it had appeared. The lights returned to normal. The air became breathable again. And the other hunters looked at each other in shock and fear. Grabbed Minu's arm. Did you hear that? Everyone did, Minu said. His voice was shaking slightly. The old stood slowly. Its ancient face was grave. The supreme hunter has spoken. The trial begins. Minu didn't know what that meant, but he knew one thing for certain. His life was about to change in ways he couldn't imagine. The quiet human engineer who just wanted to fix air recyclers was gone. The hunter inside him had awakened, and apparently something very old and very powerful had noticed. 3 days passed in tense silence. Everyone on Station Prime waited. The greatest hunters prepared their weapons and trained constantly, barely slept. The other species prayed to their gods or performed their rituals. Minu continued his work, but his hands shook when he held his tools. Stayed close to him, worried. On the 3rd day, the stars outside the station changed. Space itself seemed to tear open. A massive ship appeared, unlike anything in any database. It was black and seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange symbols covered its hull, symbols that hurt to look at. The ship sent a single message in the ancient hunting tongue. Only the oldest species could read it, and they translated with trembling voices. The trial begins. Send forth your finest. A beam of light shot from the ship and hit the station. When the light faded, something stood in the central chamber. It was a being of shifting form. Sometimes it looked reptilian, sometimes mammalian, sometimes like an insect. Its shape never stayed the same for more than a few seconds, but its eyes, those stayed constant. They were ancient eyes that had seen galaxies born and die. I am called on, the being said. Its voice echoed in everyone's minds rather than their ears. I serve the first Fang, the supreme hunter. Every 1,000 cycles, I test the worthiest hunters. Those who fail are marked with shame. Those who succeed earn the right to stand before the Supreme Hunter itself. Stepped forward immediately. I volunteer for the... Other hunters called out, volunteering their own species. 10 hunters came forward in total. They were the strongest, fastest, most skilled warriors on the station. On's eyes swept across them. Then those ancient eyes stopped on Minyu, who was standing in the back, trying to be invisible. "The small one," On said. "He carries the scent of the true hunt. He will join the trial." Minyu felt every eye in the chamber turn toward him. "I'm not a hunter, I'm an engineer. You killed 4 void ravagers with improvised weapons. You moved with the efficiency of a natural predator. You carry the mark of those who hunt." On's form shifted into something that might have been a smile. "You will join, or this station will be marked as harboring cowards. All who live here will be shamed for generations." Grabbed Minyu's hand. "You don't have to do this." But Minyu knew he did. He couldn't let everyone on the station suffer because of him. "I'll join." On nodded. "The trial takes place in a pocket dimension. You will survive for 3 days in a hunting ground filled with deadly creatures. Your goal is simple: claim a trophy from the deadliest predator in that realm, the Void Tyrant. Many champions have died attempting this. Most never even find the beast." Before anyone could respond, On raised one shifting hand. The world turned white. When Minyu could see again, he was standing in a forest, but it wasn't like any Earth forest. The trees were massive, with bark that looked like metal. The sky was purple. Strange sounds echoed from every direction. 9 other hunters appeared around him, each materializing from light. Was there, along with beings Minyu had never seen before. One looked like a living shadow. Another was covered in crystals that glowed faintly. "The trial begins now," On's voice echoed through the forest. "Survive, hunt, prove your worth." Then the voice was gone, and they were alone. The shadow being disappeared instantly, vanishing into the darkness between trees. The crystal hunter ran in a different direction. Within seconds, the group scattered. Everyone knew the trial was individual. Working together was not forbidden, but it wouldn't earn you respect. Looked at Minyu. "Stay out of my way, human. This is my hunt." He ran off, following 2 others who had volunteered. Minyu stood alone in the strange forest. He had no weapons, no tools, just his hands and his mind. He took a deep breath and started walking. Not running, walking. He watched everything. The way the plants moved in the wind, the tracks in the dirt, the scratches on tree bark. He was reading the environment, learning it. Hours passed. Minyu found a stream and drank. He found plants that looked edible and carefully tested them. He made a simple spear from a branch and a sharp stone. Nothing fancy, but it would work. That night he heard screaming in the distance. One of the hunters had died. On the second day, Minyu found more tracks. These were huge, deep gouges in the ground, claw marks that tore through metal bark trees, the Void Tyrant. He followed the tracks carefully, always staying downwind. He learned the creature's patterns, where it hunted, when it rested, what it ate. He also found group. They were cornered against a cliff face. The Void Tyrant had found them first. The creature was massive. It had 6 eyes arranged in a circle around its head. Its body was covered in black scales that looked like armor. Its claws were longer than Minyu's arms and gleamed like metal. When it roared, the sound shook the ground. 2 of them were already dead. Was wounded badly, his leg torn open. The third stood in front of him, trying to hold the beast back, but it was clear he would fail. Minyu could have walked away. This wasn't his fight. Had mocked him, insulted him. He owed the nothing. But's words echoed in his mind. "We are pack hunters." Minyu moved. He had spent a day and a half preparing. He had found the right trees, the ones with flexible branches. He had woven vines into rope. He had dug small pits and covered them with leaves. He had made a dozen small spears and hidden them in strategic locations. Now he used all of it. He threw a rock, hitting the void tyrant in one of its 6 eyes. The creature roared and turned toward him. Minyu ran, leading it away from. The beast charged after him, fast and furious. Minyu led it through his prepared path. The creature hit the first trap, a bent tree that whipped back and struck it in the face. It stumbled but kept coming. It fell into one of the pits, though the pit was too shallow to hold it for long. But each trap slowed it down. Each trap did small damage. Minyu wasn't trying to kill it with these tricks. He was wearing it down, making it tired, making it angry and careless. He led it in circles for hours. The void tyrant was strong, but Minyu was patient. He never stopped moving. He never let it rest. Finally, as the purple sun was setting, the creature began to slow. Its breaths came in ragged gasps. One of its legs was injured from the traps. Its eyes were tired. Minyu stopped running. He turned to face the beast. He held his simple spear and looked into its 6 eyes. "I am Pack Hunter," he said quietly in the hunting tongue that had taught him. "I am Tool Maker. I am the patient death." The void tyrant charged one last time, but it was tired, slow. Minyu and drove his spear deep into the gap between its armored scales. The creature tried to fight, but Minyu held on. He didn't let go. He never let go. Eventually, the void tyrant fell. Its 6 eyes closed. It was dead. Minyu stood over it, breathing hard. His entire body hurt, but he was alive. Limped over, supported by the surviving. He looked at Minyu, then at the dead tyrant, then back at Minyu. "You saved us. Why?" Minyu pulled his spear free and claimed one of the tyrant's claws as his trophy. "Because that's what pack hunters do." The white light returned, and Minyu found himself back in the central chamber of Station Prime. The other hunters appeared around him. Only 6 had survived. 4 had died in the hunting grounds. On stood before them, its form shifting constantly. It studied each hunter, examining their trophies. Some had brought claws. Others had brought teeth or scales. All were from dangerous creatures. When On reached Minyu, the being stopped. Its ancient eyes focused on the claw in Minyu's hand, the claw of the void tyrant. "How many claim the tyrant?" On asked. Silence. No one else raised their hand. "Then Minyu of Earth is the victor." On's voice filled the chamber. "He succeeded where others failed. He is worthy." Stepped forward, wincing from his wounds. "He didn't just succeed. He saved us. The tyrant had us cornered. We would have died. Minyu led it away and killed it alone." The other hunters murmured. Even those who had survived looked at Minyu with new respect. "I was not alone," Minyu said quietly. "I used what I learned from watching all of you. Your techniques, your strategies, I just adapted them." On tilted its head. "Interesting, you claim no glory for yourself." "Glory doesn't matter. Survival matters. Protecting the pack matters." As Minyu spoke those words, something changed in the air. The temperature dropped. A feeling of immense power filled the chamber, far greater than what On had brought. Reality itself seemed to tear open. A rift appeared in the center of the chamber, and through it stepped a being that made everyone fall to their knees. Even On bowed. The being was enormous, yet its size seemed to shift. Sometimes it looked like a massive predator with fangs and claws. Sometimes it looked almost human. Its form constantly changed, but its presence was absolute. This was ancient power. This was the force that had taught species how to hunt. This was the first Fang. "I am what you call the Supreme Hunter," the being said. Its voice was the sound of wind through canyons, of predators stalking prey, of the first hunt that ever was. "I am the first Fang. I have walked among your ancestors and taught them the sacred way of the hunt." Every being in the chamber felt small. Even the mighty warrior looked like a child before this entity. The Supreme Hunter approached Minyu. Its eyes, which held the light of dying stars, studied the small human carefully. "I know your species, little Terran. I walked your world when your kind first learned to throw stones and chase prey across endless plains. I watched you become the most efficient killers your planet had ever known. Minyu couldn't speak. He could barely breathe. The presence was overwhelming. Other species were born with claws, fangs, armor, venom. Your species was born with nothing but a clever mind and an indomitable spirit. You made yourselves into hunters through will alone. The supreme hunter circled Minyu slowly. You learned to run longer than any prey could. You learned to track using the smallest signs. You learned to communicate complex strategies with your pack. You learned to make weapons that extended your reach beyond your small bodies. The entity stopped in front of Minyu. And then you became so good at hunting that you nearly destroyed yourselves. You turned your skills against your own kind. You created weapons of such terrible efficiency that you almost vanished from existence. Was watching from the crowd, tears streaming down her face. She knew this history. Every human did. But you didn't destroy yourselves, the Supreme Hunter continued. You made a choice. You chose to restrain your nature. You chose to turn your hunting instinct toward creation rather than destruction. You built instead of destroyed. You explored instead of conquered. This is not weakness. The entity placed a massive hand on Minyu's shoulder. Everyone in the chamber felt the weight of that gesture. This is the ultimate evolution. You are not merely hunters. You are the hunt itself, given consciousness and choice. You can kill, but you choose not to. You can destroy, but you choose to build. You are kin to me not because you can hunt, but because you understand what it means to be a hunter. The Supreme Hunter turned to address everyone in the chamber. I have tested countless species over millions of years. I have watched them rise and fall, but never have I called any of them kin, until now. Gasps filled the chamber, even On looked shocked. The Terrans are my kin. They understand what others do not. That the truest hunter is not the one who kills the most, but the one who knows when not to kill. That the strongest predator is not the one with the sharpest claws, but the one who can choose mercy and mean it. The Supreme Hunter raised its voice so that it echoed through the entire station. Let it be known across the galaxy. Humans are recognized as a sovereign hunter species. Their right to peace is sacred. Their capacity for war must never be forgotten or underestimated. Any species that harms them will face my judgment. Stood slowly. Supreme Hunter, I have wronged these humans. I mocked them. I treated them as prey. How do I make amends? The ancient being looked at with something that might have been approval. You ask the right question. You learn. That is good. Remember that strength is not only in claws and fangs. Remember that the smallest predator can be the deadliest. Remember that humans chose peace, but peace is not the same as helplessness. The Supreme Hunter turned back to Minyu one final time. It spoke quietly, so only Minyu could hear. Your species will face great trials ahead. When the time comes, remember that a true hunter protects the pack. You are shepherds of your own nature. Never lose sight of what you are, but never forget what you choose to be. The entity touched Minyu's hand. When it pulled away, a mark remained on Minyu's palm. It was a simple symbol that translated to the patient death in the hunting tongue. You carry my mark now, Minyu of Earth. It is a reminder and a warning. To you, to others, you are kin to the first fang. The Supreme Hunter and On vanished. The rift closed. Reality returned to normal, but nothing would ever be the same. Slowly, every hunter in the chamber turned to Minyu. Then, one by one, they bowed. Even went down on one knee, placing his clawed hand over his heart in the highest gesture of respect his species knew. Forgive me, Minyu of Earth, said. I saw your size and thought you were weak. I should have looked at what you accomplished despite your size. That shows greater strength than anything I have ever achieved. Minyu helped stand. You don't need to bow, I'm still just an engineer. No, said firmly. You are kin to the Supreme Hunter. You are a reminder to all of us that the most dangerous predator is not always the largest or strongest. Sometimes it is the one who thinks, the one who adapts, the one who never stops coming. Over the following days, everything changed on Station Prime. The prey table was removed. Humans were invited to sit with the hunters. Other species began to ask questions about Earth, about human history, about what made humans unique. But Minyu found himself standing alone in an observation room, looking at Earth through the window. It was just a small blue dot from this distance. Found him there. How do you feel? She asked. Minyu looked at the mark on his hand. It glowed faintly in the dim light. Scared, he said honestly. We spent thousands of years trying to be better than our nature, trying to prove we were more than just hunters, and now we're being celebrated for the very thing we tried to transcend. Maybe, said gently, the Supreme Hunter saw that the struggle itself is what makes us worthy, not the violence we're capable of, but the fact that we choose peace despite it. We could be conquerors, we could be destroyers, but we chose to be builders and explorers instead. Minyu nodded slowly. Do you think other humans will understand when they hear about this? I think they'll be reminded of what we were, and maybe that's not a bad thing, not as a call to return to violence, but as a reminder that we have the strength to defend ourselves and others when needed. We're not helpless. We're just patient. The patient death, Minyu said, looking at his mark again. Yes, we don't strike first, we don't seek conflict, but if pushed, we endure, we adapt, we overcome. That's what makes us human. They stood together, watching their home planet. Somewhere out in the galaxy, word was spreading. The small Terrans, once laughed at as a prey species, were now recognized as kin to the Supreme Hunter itself. Not because they were the strongest, not because they had the sharpest claws or the deadliest venom, but because they understood what it truly meant to be a predator who chooses not to prey, to be a hunter who protects instead of kills, to have the capacity for terrible violence but the wisdom to restrain it. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again, and humanity would never forget that beneath their peaceful civilization, the ancient hunter still waited, patient, watchful, ready. Because that was what it meant to be human, to be the patient death that chooses mercy, to be kin to the first fang.